Thank you for joining us. Today, our workshop is on your story, using your story to connect, sell more art, and create strong advocates. My name is Mark Loeb. Let me tell you a little bit of my story. Not even my wife knows this, but my first job was working as a model for my mother. Working with her, I learned to frame, I learned a lot about art appreciation, and attending art fairs with her, I learned about how discouraging art can be. The first crisis of my art career was when I was 6 years old. I flunked a colorblind test. As a result, most of my work in the arts has been in ceramics and in glass blowing. Years later, I had helped out with some events, and I realized that was where my real passion was. I had major roles with the Detroit Festival of the Arts and the Detroit Jazz Fest and many other projects. 20 years ago, I decided I wanted to start focusing on my own events. Some people thought that events should be everything for everybody. I always thought of them as very specific and perhaps even as an art form. Each should have a purpose and a goal. So I began first the Funky Ferndale Art Fair, then the Palmer Park Art Fair, and the Belle Isle Art Fair, and some others. Each of the fairs has its own story and is different from the others. But what qualifies me to tell you about storytelling? In college, my minor was in young people's theater. I also spent 7 years as an improv performer. Tilt performed 2 or 3 times a month, sometimes weekly. It wasn't big money, but it was theater. Since the pandemic began, we've been working with artists to help them to tell their stories. One of the first series we did was how to create a video studio tour to help sell your work during the pandemic. The subtitle could be Telling Your Story. Next, we got into branding. What makes you unique? That's an important part for a good artist's story. Every path brought us back to storytelling, so it seemed like a good place to move next. Today, we're going to talk about why stories are important. We're going to talk about some different types of stories that might be valuable to tell. Let's assume that one of the reasons you're an artist is because you want to sell art. So why do people buy art? It won't surprise you to hear that many people buy art for an emotional need. They like the way the art makes them feel. The emotion evoked is the story. Yes, some people buy art because they feel it makes them look important. You could say that prestige is all about the story. Another reason that people buy art, they want to make a statement. They want to be different, or they want to fit in. How does art make a statement? Yep, it's the story. And the fourth major reason that people buy art is because they know and like the artist. And why do they like you enough to buy from you? Because of your story. My friend Roddy knew that most of the people at the art fair were not his customers. Many people walked right by the booth. That's not his customer. Others would stop, look for a second, and run on. Those weren't his customers either. Roddy would perk up when he saw somebody stop and look at his pots. But then, the telltale sign. They'd pick it up, notice the price, and either put it down gently and run, or they'd look to him to start a conversation. Roddy wasn't a snob. He'd talk to anyone. He'd wait, though, to get a sign that they wanted to talk to him. There was no point in telling a story to somebody who was not ready to hear it. Here are the facts about Roddy's pots. First of all, it takes him 40 to 100 hours to make them. Secondly, they're beautifully glazed. Third, he presented them in a custom box. Fourth, he was in the permanent collection of many museums. As cool as all those facts are, they were not enough to sell art to most people. What was enough was when Roddy would tell them his story. You know, the first time I saw pinch pots, I wasn't that impressed. But when I looked closely and I saw the texture and the detail, at this point he would hold the pot up really close for the person to examine. I was so excited. Since then, I've spent thousands of hours every year working on improving my technique. These pots are certainly not for everyone, only those that can see the detail and craftsmanship. When you purchase one and take it home, some of your friends won't even notice it, but those that do will be intrigued. In fact, every year, the majority of my sales go to my collectors. They're buying their second, third, fifth, or even 10th pot. So what's more convincing, the story or the facts? For the purpose of this workshop, we're going to stick with 3 kinds of stories. Each one has a different strength and might be used at different times, though there is a certain amount of overlap. The first kind is the value story. Basically, let's sell you something. The second kind of story is the artist story, and that is your story about you and why they should buy your art. The third, which is the most powerful kind of story, is the customer story. This is best told from the customer's point of view, or even better, this story should be told by your customers. Let's have a hypothetical auction to sell this art. The opening is $4. The bidder saw something just like it at Target. It's a standard 5x7 greeting card. Bidder 2 can tell this is a woodcut, so the bid goes to $20. Bidder 3 offers $50. It would be more, but it's not signed or numbered. Now bidder 4 knows the artist, Philip Guston, and his importance. Here's a bid for $200. It turns out this is a monoprint. Whoever made a woodcut monoprint? Now $500. Guston is especially relevant now for his anti-Klan murals. Finally, there's a bid for $1,000 because not only was it a one-of-a-kind woodcut print, but it was mailed to Elise Asher, who was a painter and poet. Could there be a love connection? I'll never tell. Regardless of how much you love this image, the true value of it increases greatly when you add in the story. The artist story is one you've probably told many times. Let me tell you the story of Integrity Shows. After 20 years of working for different festivals and events, I had had some great mentors, but I saw other people that weren't doing a very good job. I felt that if I started my own shows, I could do something that would be much more favorable for the artist. But I didn't want to be lumped in as one of those promoters that sell too many spaces, or don't care about the quality of the art, or otherwise are not artist friendly. I felt that I didn't want to be lumped in with that group. A friend suggested that I needed to come up with a way to differentiate myself. Well, after debating it for a while, we came up with a great name, Integrity Shows. Play on words, and it really implies what it is that we do that's different. My wife sealed the deal when she said, "Hey, if you're going to use a name that includes integrity, you are going to have to live by it." I feel really good about taking on that challenge. That story may have made you feel better about the company, but a customer story is even more powerful. At first, this letter made me feel good about our workshop series, but reading on, I realized this helped validate our claim to integrity. Here's another example of how a customer story helps. Especia is a fabulous artist who came up through our Mint Artist Guild Teen Artist Program. She's a fabulous artist, award winner, and has been in great shows along with her boyfriend, Anthony. Right from the start, Especia started taking photos of her customers as they bought her art. She and Anthony post these photos on their social media feed. Now think about it. Look at these 2 images. Which one is your customer going to put on his feed and become an advocate? That's the value of a customer story. Let's do a quick review here. We covered why stories are important. We also decided that we're going to focus on 3 kinds of stories. The value story about what makes your art special, the artist story about what makes you special, and finally, the customer story, what makes your customers special. Now here's some homework. We're getting together again on Wednesday the 26th at 2:30 Eastern Time, and when you come, I'd like you to be ready to discuss some of the aspects of your story. For example, Writing the value story, what are some of the things that make your work valuable? And what is a common argument you might hear, and how do you counter it? Artist story could be about why you decided to become an artist. It could be about some of the people that encouraged you along the way, and great stories are often told about problems that you've encountered and how you overcame them. Remember, the customer story is best told by your customers. You can encourage them to tell a story, but really, you want to keep it in their words. Think about who are some of the best customers, and maybe you could get them to tell a story for you. What is it that encouraged them to buy the work in the first place? How come they continue to buy your work again and again? And it doesn't hurt for them to throw in why they like you as an artist. These are just some of the many prompt questions you could use. What I'd like you to do is play with this list and come up with at least one story idea that you can bring for when we come back together next week. We hope that you're finding this material helpful and will join us for some of our live sessions. Information is at www.integrityshows.com. To watch any of our past presentations on YouTube, go to www.is.gd/artyoutube, all in lowercase letters. We organize art fairs in the Metro Detroit area: Kensington Metro Park, the Palmer Park Art Fair, the Royal Oak Art of Fire, Stony Creek Art Fair, the Belle Isle Art Fair, the Funky Ferndale Art Fair, the Ann Arbor Holiday Art Fair. For information about these, go to integrityshows.com. Thank you for joining us. We don't charge for any of our seminars. It's very important to us that we provide the information free. However, we do encourage you to tip the presenters.